Welcome to First State Kopites, a podcast for Delaware's Liverpool supporters and their friends.
Hey, welcome back to the latest edition of First State Kopites. It's been a while. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and friends of those Liverpool supporters. And talking of those friends, today we've got, we haven't had Haitham on in a while. He's in a cold Chicago. And Daz is in Baltimore as usual. And Justin is joining us from New York. Sean is not with us today, but we will be talking about some of his interesting opinions about the World Cup. We won't be spending that long on the World Cup, but we will be spending time talking about formations and interesting stuff like that. It's December 6th. The Reds haven't played for 3.5 weeks now. There's a ton of speculation. Don't know how much we're going to get into that, but we talk about ownership, transfer windows, people leaving the club, and the fact that we're back in action in less than a week in the first annual Dubai Cup. Who knows how long that's going to last? And of course, you've got the Human Rights World Cup in the background, which I'm sure we'll touch on many levels. I'm going to try and start because I'm sure we're going to go off on some big tangent. With the season so far, we finished the season with a couple of good wins. Thought Núñez and Salah had some big moments, if we can remember 3.5 weeks back. If you're thinking then, I'll start with you, Haitham. Given you haven't been with us for a while, your perspective on the season so far. Lots of conversations about a fading midfield, and I think that's the adjustment that we've had to make with Diaz's kind of first full season, Núñez's inclusion, and the absence of Mane, who obviously knew what we were going to do instinctively anyway. What's your assessment of kind of where we are right now after the kind of ups and downs and maybe the nice ups at the end of the first half of the season?
Yeah. So, to be honest, I expected I don't know how to characterize it, whether it's a drop off or whatever. Just I might have mentioned this in the past, but just the amount of matches that we played last year. I mean, you have to be playing with robots for them to continue on that same level. So I expected the dip. And obviously, that is not the only reason. Injuries, came into the fold. Many other things. I mean, it's just that's just how football is.
Yeah.
So it was, it was painful to go through it. I think the last time before this season a couple of seasons ago with all the injuries to Virgil, a couple other players or whatever, we went through a similar phase where, results are not good. But, at the same time, just going through that, because again, our short-term memory or whatever is not people don't look at things that way. I kind of knew that just because of the type of players that we have and the team, the coaching staff and all that stuff, I know we were going to bounce back. So and then it kind of manifested in the last few weeks of before the World Cup. I thought we started playing better consistently. So yeah, I think this break has always, been something that I was looking forward to, just to, for the rest, for all the players to get, well, the ones that were injured. And I think, the time together, the fact that we only had 7 players at the World Cup?
Yeah. 6 now.
Yeah.
7. Yep.
Yeah. So I thought that was good because it means, most of the squad is going to be able to be together and train together or individually, whatever. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about the second half of the season, or after the World Cup, basically until May. I have high expectations. If nothing, I think we're going to have better performances.
Yeah. So I think we did leave the first half of the season with some optimism. We played a lot. So I'm going to go to you, Justin. Maybe talk a little bit about formations, because it has felt like we have tried to do something different, and I'm not sure we've abandoned it yet. And I guess the one thing I'd interject is Sean suggested and let's talk about what our opinion is, and that Liverpool should go for a 4-4-2 going forward, and that'll really help Núñez, set the world on fire. I guess part of my concern would be, where do we continue to find 4 healthy midfielders to play that formation? But anyway, thoughts about kind of what we experimented with and where you think we are now.
I mean, with that introduction, I actually feel like a rapper introduced for his verse in a diss track. But I think it's the 4-3-3. Like, I think that's what we stick with, because that's what our players know. Like, that's been our DNA for 6 years, 7 years under Klopp.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know his system that well, it's easier to just go back to it and say, let's go back to basics in this, which some of our best performances came in just going back to basics in the 4-3-3. Spurs away for 60 minutes, great performance. And we died because we have no fresh players at that point in time. But like, for 60 minutes, we took it to a really good team away from home and beat them. We had a really good performance in the 4-3-3 against Southampton. We had a really good performance in the 4-3-3 against Napoli. Those are your last 3 games before the break, because I don't really count Derby and the Cup, as they basically, Daz, Haitham, and I were the front 3 that day.
And then they brought Ben Doak on,
and then Ben Doak, and yeah, who I buy into big time. But I think it's just stick with what you know, stick with what you know works, and do the thing. Like our original 4-3-3 before we started to go completely wacky and Linders-esque with it, was a very hard thing to stop. And I'd like us to just go back to the thing that's very hard to stop that we know to do, because it brings the best out of a lot of our players. Now, Núñez will probably get incorporated through the middle when we have actually everybody healthy, because you'd expect it's going to be Salah on the right and Diaz on the left. You just like for the two of them to be a lot closer to Diaz than they had been in the first half of the season under the Linders tactics. But I just don't think the 4-4-2, like, I get that football styles are cyclical and things come back. I just feel like that's the formation that every manager worth a damn figured out how to completely dismantle 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know I don't think that that's really anything more than just a stopgap in case people are really injured.
Just come back to you a little, because I do think that we haven't quite figured out, and we haven't really had much of a chance to do this. Maybe the Arsenal game in the first half was the only time where I don't know if we've quite figured out yet how to play Núñez and Diaz together. I'm thinking like one of Diaz's best performances of the season was after Núñez got red carded against Palace. And Núñez has put in some of his better performances since Diaz has been injured. Got the right way around. I mean, just thoughts on that, because I'm totally with the 4-3-3. I just think the 4-3-3, the final 3, is going to have to be different, and I'm not sure we've quite sussed out what that difference is.
I think they're going to need to gel a bit more. Like I could see Núñez coming through the center now, because he's been playing on the left lately. It's been Bobby through the middle, but I could see Núñez coming through the center and also going out to the left and using that to manage his minutes, keeping Firmino in the middle to kind of manage his minutes and having him rotate with Darwin, as to a point where you're also going to see Bobby, Diaz, and Salah quite a bit until Jota comes back. And I think it's going to be, you're just going to see a lot of, there are going to be 2 players with set positions, which are going to be Firmino and Salah. And you're going to have Diaz always on the left, and you're going to have Núñez finding minutes probably between both coming off the left and up through the middle. And I wouldn't be shocked if in certain games you might even see Diaz playing to the right, because he's a right foot player, and if you have a big strong center forward, crossing into him again is a target. So I do think there are different things we can do within that 4-3-3, but it all really just aligns with the fact that you need to get 2 guys who haven't played a lot of football together to understand what the other one's going to do, which is tough because both of those guys, not the most insanely predictable as to when they're going to release the ball. Diaz can be a little predictable with the fact that he's going to cut in on his right and shoot. The thing is, most people just can't stop it, so that's why it works. But yeah, nobody knows what Darwin's going to do. Darwin doesn't know what Darwin's going to do. So, we need to get into a situation where at least Diaz knows what Darwin's going to do.
But again, I'd like to add to that if I can. Paul, in your examples, I think correlation isn't necessarily causation. And it was a really small sample set where you said that they did better when the other one wasn't there. And I think you can fold that into Justin's point that once there's more synergy between the two of them, you'll probably see it look a lot better. Another thing to consider is like our 4-3-3, or the way that we've played it traditionally, relies on the individual brilliance of a lot of our players within the system. It's like, we know the Klopp's very much a systems person, and when it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And then you have Linda's that's trying to recreate what it looks like, and I don't think that we had enough time to get it right. Hence, Klopp saying is like our first 3 games are going to be considered part of our preseason.
Yeah,
and you saw that was kind of devastating because we didn't get the 9 points that we all thought we were going to get against the level of competition that we were playing against. So it's, I think, back to basics. And once we have people that are fit and firing again, you'll probably see, to Justin's point, that 4-3-3 will probably start to sing a little bit more. My one detraction is, and I think we talked about this a while ago, the way that a manager like, Mourinho specifically kept it fresh for when he'd been at a club for a while, was he'd look at different formations just to freshen it up for his players. Now that can be dangerous, because you're asking players that are used to playing in a particular position and doing it well to step outside of their comfort zone to do it. That you can bring in fresh personnel to combat that. But I sometimes think that we've said it as well. Like, sometimes we lack the capacity to implement an effective plan B if things aren't going well in plan A. And in the past, we've kind of just bludgeoned our way across the finish line, oftentimes based almost entirely on the brilliance of a Mo putting us on his back, or a Mane doing just that. But I think that we've got the personnel in place. Once they're healthy and fit again, I think that we'll probably see that 4-3-3 will sing.
Just to kind of challenge that and maybe get your perspective on formations, actually, Haitham, and this is more about looking forward. I do wonder, given, so there's a range of perspectives, right? One is like the club have been the most negligent they could possibly be about their midfield, and the other is like, how many bad luck stories can you have? Somewhere in the middle of that is, is the 4-2-3-1 option actually kind of more helpful, because then you need less midfielders on most occasions to play that formation. Is that a possibility if we have Fabinho and Henderson come back? Fabinho hopefully will be quite rested given his non-contribution to Brazil's World Cup effort. But Henderson seems now like the the mainstay of the England team. And of course, if they go far, then and that actually had me thinking about a slight tangent, kind of the worst scenarios. I think the worst scenarios are for us if France play the Netherlands in the final, and then we have no centre backs like for a couple of weeks, or England plays Brazil in the final, and then we have no midfield for the first few weeks of the season. So anyway, just final thought, Haitham, on potential formations going forward.
Yeah, I think we've used that formation on a few matches, if I remember correctly. The what is it? 4-2-3-1. Yeah,
I think we've switched in game often to it rather than necessarily.
Yeah, in game. Yeah, that's what I meant. To be honest, to me it's just, I just go back to what Justin was saying, what Daz was saying. The 4-3-3 is our bread and butter, and sometimes we just need to readjust. And I know you mentioned that we don't have enough midfielders. I think that's going to change.
That's a bigger topic. Well, let's open that up in a moment.
Yeah, it will change. When I say it's going to change, I'm talking about the people that are coming back. I'm not talking about new signings or anything like that. Hopefully, we get midfielders. I've been trying to scout some in the World Cup or whatever, but haven't seen anything that was easy on my eyes, except for a couple of people. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, it's if we need to readjust, during the game for whatever. I think we stick with what we know, with what our players know, and if we need to switch it up, to change the tactics during the game, it's fine to go to the 4-2-3-1. And Fabinho played in one game, by the way. The only game
I was
lost.
just I'm not sure how hard he's working, because it's, I guess, my point.
Yeah.
So Justin, just wrapping this topic up about future formations, the much discussed and critiqued midfield. Kind of what are your thoughts about that kind of going forward? And I realize that leads into a potential chat about transfers, but I'm really thinking about, do we really expect Keita to come back?
I mean, apparently he trained today, but I'm going to need like a proof of life video with him holding up a newspaper saying today's date before I believe it.
Yeah. These days, I'm sure someone can fake that too.
Yeah, I know. It's not even that deep a fake, but yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of Henderson, a lot of Thiago, a lot of Fabinho, a lot of Harvey Elliott, and hopefully Curtis Jones can actually like stake his name to a spot in that midfield, because we need that.
Probably been bitten by a black mamba, knowing his luck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any. I mean, like, I don't see any way to fix what we have going on in our midfield without bringing in new blood. I just don't.
And you don't mean Arthur Melo in the new player?
No, I don't, because Arthur Melo is another one where I need to see a proof of life video.
Ox.
I mean,
no one wants Ox to succeed more than this guy right here. I think that, to labor the ox analogy, it might be time for him to find a new pasture, because I don't know. Like, I want to be able to reserve judgment, but I think we have a big enough sample size to suggest that it might be time for him to seek other venues to ply his trade.
Yeah. I thought actually over the break, Sean Rogers said something I thought, which I'd really go with Oxlade-Chamberlain, which was 2018. He was the player we needed, and with all the injuries he's had and the players we've added since, he's fulfilling a role that we no longer have a need for. But doesn't mean he won't play some games. Got a lot of League Cup games coming up, hopefully. So
he's a likable guy, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, I think the time has passed.
I think too often people on these here airwaves just want to slaughter someone out of hand for a bad result or a couple of bad results, where you can wish someone well and look at the context behind why they potentially, like, he's got a new baby, he's had 2 devastating injuries when he was arguably at the height of his powers. Like, there's quite a few of them. Like, and talking about Haitham's, like, there's so much so much more than just the physical aspect of it. There's the mental, there's the emotional, there's the psychological. Like, it's all of these things. And I know all those people that are saying, "Oh, Liverpool is shite." It's like, you have to have played in every game that was on the docket for the entire season to be able to enter that chat, to be able to say, "Is like, well, they're professionals, mate." They played every game that was slated, every single one that they could have played, and they played it.
Yeah. And I saw a stat which said that Naby Keita was played in 45 games last year, which I was shocked by. I think there's still a question whether he adds that number this year.
For someone else.
With some, yeah.
Well, someone said that, how about money? How about him and money for Jude Bellingham? Going the other way.
Oh, so we're going down that path already.
You just mentioned him. It's your fault. You had a tangent earlier. I thought tangents were cool.
If you're Dortmund, why would you do that? Because you don't. There's no way Keita's gonna sign another contract at Liverpool. You just, if you're the player at that point, you hold out until the summer and actually take the sign-on bonus without the transfer fee.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, sure. Man can dream.
Yeah. So we're going to come on to some serious chat about Amrabat and Caicedo before we're done here. None of this trading Keita for anybody. How about we end that part in terms of season so far, or maybe projections looking forward for formation? When we come back, let's talk about like some of the things that are swirling around Anfield right now. In a positive note, the Anfield Road end is almost complete, and will certainly be ready to have 61,000 at the start of next season. In contrast, we might have new ownership. We've got an exodus of backroom staff, and a lot of Twitter sphere negativity about the team and what will happen if we don't sign somebody in January. Hey, welcome back to part 2 of First State Kopites. We're going to touch on a few, mid-season, interim season, whatever the gap's called. I'll go first to Justin. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation since it was reported, and then FSG announced that they were in for selling the club, either totally or selling a part of the club to I guess I don't know what the logic was. Was the logic to cash in on their original investment, or was there logic that they needed more investment to be able to compete with oil state countries that own certain Premier League teams and maybe about to own more? Justin?
I think it's the latter, but they probably would say the former. Like it's just you don't want to sometimes say, we don't think we can compete, because that's going to completely and totally demoralize every single person at the club. It's going to demoralize the support. Like, that's one of those hard truths you kind of can't tell.
Yeah.
But like, we probably can't compete without more money. Like, it's true. And it's pretty sad, because we're one of the highest grossing clubs in world football. Like, the game is basically a few, like Klopp said, it's a few clubs that have no ceiling. And when that's what you're competing against, they just distort the market, and you end up in an arms race with someone who can wildly outspend you, which is not something you'll win.
Yeah.
But I think there's been a lot of, I think actually, like, the entire, all the news coming out around the new ownership concept is really tedious, because every single day it's, this person's interested, this person's interested. This must be further along than it seems, because they wouldn't go to the press with it if they'd known this. It's like, and then you hear basically nothing on it for weeks, and people become impatient. Look, they're probably going to get new investment in the club, where they're going to sell the club outright. It's too attractive a commercial viable, like a commercial product, that people actively probably want to buy into. Some of it for vanity, some of it for sport washing reasons, some of it for profiteering reasons. I don't know how well you'll be able to make a profit off something where the upfront cost to buy it is around $3.5 billion, but someone's probably thinking that they'll get that money back at some point. But I think it's really just the constant speculation around it is tiring. And I just really want to fast forward to the end of the process to just know what's going to happen. And I think the players want that too, because if you listen, Virgil van Dijk, when he was interviewed the other day, made note of the fact that he's like, look, we all know what's going on, and we just want it sorted as quickly as possible, because players want to know who's going to be signing their check. They want to know, am I going to be able to, do I want to stay at this club for the end of my career? Because will I be able to compete here? And that's why they want that entire thing worked out. Everybody wants it worked out. It's just, I can't keep hearing about it, because every single day people speculating on this person's buying it or this person's buying it is, it's boring. It's very boring.
It is. I just had this horrible thought, actually, which is the part of the players' consideration will be like, do we get some like vanity project loser owner who wants to sign Cristiano Ronaldo?
That was a very particular example, Paul. Were you leading the witnesses towards something?
No, it just crossed my mind. It was like,
sounds suspiciously like Chelsea's new owner.
Oh well, that's it. You're right. That's how I got there. It's like, oh, maybe we could do the guy. No, maybe not.
Well, he's Al Nasser's number 7 now.
I mean, there's 6 better players. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the club he's signing with, Al Nasser in the Saudi league, for £205 million a year.
Wait a minute. Piers Morgan said this is not going to happen.
Piers Morgan must have his head up the wrong arse then.
Paul, I don't know if this is a shock to you, given the disclaimer that comes at the end of this episode, but Piers Morgan is not a trustworthy source.
Oh, but he is close to Cristiano Ronaldo.
Some might argue too close.
The only person who thought he should have been playing for Portugal today. Yes. Yeah.
No, there was also that speedy guy. What was his name? Speed, the guy that seems to be his curse. Every time he shows up, he gets benched. He's been to 3 of his games. He's been benched for all 3 of them.
Yeah, but I believe you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a bull's ass. But wouldn't you rather take Piers Morgan's word for it? Man, that joke from Tommy Boy comes off better than Tommy Boy.
It's a bad path. I can't believe I appeared even to be endorsing anything Piers Morgan was advocating. Yeah, let's move on.
Speculation. This is like transfer speculation, just on a bigger scale, isn't it? And it's Manchester United's going to have to go through it. It's like all those people that are bored with transfer, like with player transfers, are bored with this too. It's like just do or do not. Like it's tedious. And then you like, what was the most recent one? The Saudi Qatari one coming from the Sports Direct or Sporting News?
The Sporting News, which is
never heard of it.
It's a reputable sport about Major League Baseball in the 1990s.
Oh, that's probably why I've never heard of it.
That's it. We need to call Bill James and figure out what the right thing to do is.
We don't need to call Bill James.
Sorry, 90s baseball reference. I thought that was pretty spot on. I could go down the Moneyball path now, but let's not. One of the other things that's happening at the same time, though, is it appears that everybody who ever worked for Liverpool that we always credited with us being smarter than everybody else seems to be about to leave, including not only Michael Edwards obviously is gone, Justin Ward, who took his place. Julian Ward,
who hardly knew ye.
Mike Gordon
gone with Mike Gordon. Mike Gordon's still around, but has kind of moved on. But it's all the rocket scientists who seem to be about to leave.
Ian Graham.
Yes, but he's not the only one.
Well, I think he was the PhD physicist or whatever he was, right? From the Welshman.
Yeah.
Actually, I was tired of just being seen as a pretty face, so I actually did some research on this. I thought I might add some brains to this. He's just outwardly stunningness.
Well, like you're going to join the club as one of their new data analysts?
Me? How quickly do you want to go down? No, but he's been. I didn't realize this, but he's been with the club for 10 years, Ian Graham. Yeah, so
I saw that.
You could see it as well. Maybe it's just time to seek fresh pastures. You could argue the same thing for Michael Edwards. Julian Ward is a bit of a head scratcher because he just got there. But also interesting, Ian Graham put his notice in June, and he said he'd stick around till May. So my sense is, and we talked about this off air, but I think that the sale of the club and the exodus, again, I'm not going to speculate wildly, but you can draw a pretty straight line between the exodus and the fact that the sale could be somewhat imminent, because we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. There must have been so much going on beneath the surface because it's not like someone John Henry woke up a month ago and said, you know what, fuck it, I'm selling this club. It's like, this has to have been something that's gone through layers and layers of people and looking at suitors. And now we're getting the point now where the bottom feeders are up there stirring dirt. And that's where all the speculation's coming from. But above all the speculation, it is interesting that all of a sudden these people that were linked with these transfer rumors, linked with transfers, are now leaving. And again, it's like, I think the Stuttgart director of football, Mislintat, is that his name? Sven Mislintat?
Yep.
Yeah, he was an ex-Klopp. He's an ex-Klopp. What do you call it? Cohort. He worked for them at Dortmund, and then he went on to Arsenal. And I did a little bit of looking into what people's perception of him has been, and it's. I think that he tries to recycle a lot of the same players. Like he found Aubameyang, and then said when he went to Arsenal, he's like, well, you should try this guy. He found Mkhitaryan, and he's like, well, maybe you should try this guy. So it seems like he recycles some stuff. But I think that Klopp believes a lot in his eye test. Because I remember there was a story from years and years ago when he just happened to, like, someone said to, I think might have been Ian Graham, said, like, look, your team is just, it's got nothing to do with the way that you're coaching. Your team's just underperforming. They're one of the unluckiest teams, based statistically and data wise. They're one of the unluckiest teams. And Klopp thought he'd watched tons of his games, and he's like, no, I just looked at your data.
Yeah.
So I think that Klopp has respect for what the people can do based on the numbers, but he's very much of an eye test kind of guy. And you got to wonder if maybe he's at the point now, he's like, he just wants the guys that he wants. He doesn't want to have to take on an Andy Robertson. He's like, he's polished enough like uncut gems into full diamonds that now he's just like, I want a Jude Bellingham. I want a Declan Rice. I want known commodity, something that I can just plug into and I know will work. Well, again, that might be a bit painting with a broad stroke there, but he knows what he's going to get, and he knows what he can do with them.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot in what you say in terms of like the end of the era stuff. All right, because I think a few of those people had worked for the club for such a long time. I think Ian Graham in particular was associated with the Naby Keita transfer. Kind of interesting that he would leave at the same time as it would appear Naby Keita is going to leave. Yeah. So
I had one very thought about uncut gems, as Darren pointed this out. Darwin Núñez's game is Adam Sandler's Howard Ratner character in Uncut Gems turned into a footballer.
Okay, all right. I like the parallel. I like the interweaving there. Nice. See, when we're more, I told you we're more than just pretty faces, Paul.
This is good. You know, the one thing about Núñez actually that I do think is we're still to fully discover, and Haitham will go on to talk about World Cup contributions to Liverpool players, is well, I hate myself for saying this. The commentators on Fox talked about Mbappe running at 35 kilometers an hour, and I'm pretty sure earlier this season Núñez was clocked at 38 kilometers an hour. And just kind of, you know, if we can harness that into to what it could potentially be. I don't want to say he's going to be Mbappe, but I think the upside is big.
Well, you look really good next to him.
Mbappe? Oh, yeah. When we have the Qatari, Saudi collaboration. Yeah, okay. Well,
German, American money. Let's
not talk more about ownership or Todd Bowley foolishness through a filter of club good management.
I'm banking on the Sultan of Brunei.
The which?
The Brunei Sultan, the Sultan of Brunei. He was the richest man in the world, like probably about 20 years ago, or whatever. Brunei,
yeah.
What happened to him?
Yeah, he's still rich. It doesn't matter.
He's fallen. Oh my God.
I think that they actually, if you want the answer, they started producing less oil.
Oh. Okay. Well, let's speculate more on ownership in future. But so we're going to go, Haitham, we'll start with you. Going to go talk a little bit about the World Cup. We sent 7 players left our team and ended up in World Cup squads. 6 of them are still in the tournament. As I said earlier, I think, you know, there's definitely a risk scenario where we end up with no midfield or no defense, or we can midfield or defense depending on who's going to be in the final. Taking a broader perspective, what's been your take on how our folks have done in the World Cup? What's your perspective on the World Cup? Even
so the ones that got regular play, like a Virgil, Darwin seemed just, you know, he was trying to carry the Uruguayan offense by himself, because the other 2 that were stuck in there with him, except for the last game, are basically senior citizens. I mean, as far as it was just like painful, not painful. Yeah, it was painful to watch him
in football terms, just so we're not disparaging anyone who's here.
Yeah. So, you know, I in particular, Virgil, you know, I thought he is, you know, he was very solid. I thought, you know, their defense, he did a lot of the stuff that, you know, he started doing towards, you know, before the World Cup. Obviously, Hendo had a good game against Senegal. And I did not watch that game. I watched the highlights, and obviously they don't show everything, but everyone was raving about him. So I'm based on what I saw, the little that I saw, and the commentary of everyone, they did a good job.
I don't want to over egg it, but I think the real highlight was the celebration for Hendo's goal from the Bellingham pass, because that gave us all hope, right, that we're signing Jude Bellingham.
No, there was another video clip of the three of them. Some fan was asking Bellingham to go to Real, and it was Bellingham, Hendo, and Trent together. And Hendo was like, no, he can't go to Real or whatever. But yeah. Just back to the conversation. During my watching of the World Cup so far, I don't really have a team that, I'm rooting for. I have a team that I was rooting against, actually two teams that I just don't want to see. One of them got knocked out today. I'm not going to mention them by name, but
Haitham's a big fan of Spain.
Rhymes with playing, yeah.
So other than Spain and Argentina, which I don't want them to win anything. All the other teams, two criteria. Number one, are they colonizers? Have they colonized any countries? And if they have Liverpool players, when it comes to Liverpool players, I actually want them to lose because I want the players to go back and injured, and to the camp or whatever. So yeah, it just seems like we still have 6 players. Obviously Fabinho is not getting that much playing time. I don't see him getting that time unless something happens to Casemiro, and even if Casemiro gets injured or whatever, I can see Chiche actually playing Fred, which is kind of, I don't know, stupid in my own opinion. But yeah, so Ali has been great. I mean, he literally saved Brazil's behind so many times during this tournament, especially this past game. I mean, I don't know. I think he had like 3 or 4 saves.
Yeah, it was a joy. Actually, it felt like he may be even better than he was in 2018-19.
Yeah,
1920.
Yeah. Trent, I don't see him playing with Southgate as the coach.
He's just being friends with Jude.
Yeah, which is good. That's good. So yeah, I'm just my only wish is nothing happens to any of our players, no one gets injured, and obviously if England, which I'm based on who's playing who, I'd like for the Dutch to win, which means it's going to be 2 players that will go home versus just one.
That's your colonizers.
Both colonizers, so you got to go with the players. So it's going to be England. Go ahead.
Just a big tangent. Most of the Dutch squad, well, big chunk of the Dutch squad, are actually from Suriname, which and Suriname doesn't have a team. And at one point, if you had relatives in Suriname and you were Dutch, you could not play for the Suriname team. So, like Virgil, I think there's Ake, there's like Genie, all of these people are related to this country with 600,000. Anyway, so maybe you can cheer for Suriname-based Dutch players. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Same as France. France has borrowed heavily from its ex-colonies.
You just feel the Dutch might be more acknowledging of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the biggest colonizer here drew 0-0 against 13 of their colonies.
I'm struggling with the reference. I don't know you. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously they're number 1 in the list of the world's worst. But Trent's playing for them. Somebody told me, actually, you probably all know this, that Trent could have
qualified for the US.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my galaxy brain idea, is that a manager who isn't Greg Berhalter should try to convince Trent Alexander-Arnold that he'll play for the U.S. and not England. But then also, this is probably Southgate's last international tournament either way. So whoever manages England poorly next will make different kinds of mistakes with Trent.
Graham Potter. I think he's like, can't be long with Chelsea, right? They don't. Okay, we're detouring here. Do you want to say anything on transfers, or should we just look ahead?
Yeah, we should buy some midfielders.
Okay, good.
All the midfielders.
Actually, the one thing I would say is, because this has been a theme I've seen in several posts, and maybe we can get a last word on this in terms of transfers, is we should have signed Caicedo, we should have signed Amrabat, we should have signed all these people who play for, the Fernandez who plays for Benfica. And the truth is, we could not sign those people typically because we would not be able to get them work permits. And nobody would tolerate spending $3 million on an unknown player from Ecuador because they wouldn't be good enough to play right away. So we're essentially in that space, I think, where we can't sign up and coming possible people, partly because we couldn't get work permits for them. But the other thing is, people would complain about us playing those players at the very beginning of the middling part of their early careers. Thoughts?
I mean, if you've seen how Twitter melts down when Curtis Jones is selected.
Exactly. Yeah.
But people grumbled about Andy Robertson.
Yeah, because he was replacing Alberto Moreno.
Regardless, he was what, £4.5 million. He wasn't a big name. He was a quote unquote flop at Hull. We're not very good at the wait and see. But Klopp's words were, we need to start taking more risks. Now, if that's financial risks or risks with potential kids, which I guess flies in the face of everything that I just said earlier about wanting the finished product,
I think it's perhaps some of these kids might be actually closer to the finished product than we think, and just be willing to take that leap of faith.
Yeah. So I think Enzo Fernandez is a really good example, right? Because he's played for, is it 18 months at most for Benfica?
Yeah, but I think he's played for
Benfica for 3 months.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Even less, right. Yeah.
He had about 2,500 total minutes at River Plate across the Argentine League and Libertadores, which that is not a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the other name you're going to hear is going to be João Gomes from the young Brazilian player who he plays for is escaping me, but I think it's Flamengo. But that's a player we've been linked with who is supposedly really good, but we haven't made the move for him. And you see something like Real Madrid is linked with Endrick. Endrick is a 16-year-old Brazilian. This might be the new market inefficiency that these teams need to just try to take advantage of, is getting players out of South America as their first stop.
Right. But that was my point, sorry, about the work permits. It's less about I'm trying to think who the example would be. It might be less about Caicedo, but it's more about Enzo Fernandez. It's more about Brazilian 16-year-olds, because we're not getting a work permit for those people based on how Brexit now works. So,
what was the name of that Brazilian player we had? And he supposedly he was good. It was I think
Alan Rodriguez de Sousa.
Yeah, Alan something. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't sign him now.
Yeah, because
he wasn't that good. Though.
No, I think he was really good, and Klopp was actually like, "Who is this kid?" I mean, he was young, but we kept loaning him because he did not have any caps until it just faded away.
Well, the guy who plays for Forest is in the same boat. He never played for us because we could never get a work permit for him.
Yeah, Awonyi.
Yeah, Awonyi. It was him.
I mean, we still have Anderson Arroyo, who's playing for RCD Mallorca's second team or some other team in Spain, who we signed from Colombia when he was 16.
Yeah,
you're right. It has been tough for us to get work permits for some of those players. I wonder how Brighton did it with Caicedo though, because they bought him directly from Ecuador, and they've bought a bunch of players directly from Ecuador.
It's very Tory country down there. I don't know.
Brighton? I don't know.
Well, Brighton itself, maybe not so much, but
Yeah, but
it's not that
Brighton
far.
itself
It's in the
is
home
not.
counties.
There's another one, right? Does it still have to do with the number of caps that they have for their international team, or have those rules changed?
I know that's how it used to be.
It's a piece of it, but the way they collect points now, it's more restrictive. It's harder. So you could previously, Caicedo goes to, or Enzo Fernandez goes to Portugal. You're in Europe, then you can go sign that guy because he's got some European connections. Now it's like they need to do the work permit points thing, which I'm sure with him now is not an issue because he's played for Argentina like a handful of times.
Yeah, they're going to make a packet off of him considering how much they paid for him.
Yeah. Well, that's Benfica's model. Sean actually did suggest we get the sporting director from Benfica, but I think he has different parameters to work with than the ones we're forced to work with now. Okay, I want to do. Let's close part 2 there, and in part 3 we're going to come back and just look ahead a little. We've got so we're in December. We've actually got 3 proper games to play and a couple of games in the Dubai Cup. Hey, welcome back to part 3 of First State Kopites. We're just going to wrap up and just look ahead a little. I'm not sure, although we're in December and we have 2 league games, a Carabao Cup tie, and the 2 friendlies in the first annual Dubai Cup against Lyon and Milan. I'll start with you, Haitham, and feel free to ignore the Dubai Cup. I don't know which of you will even be watching these games because they're actually at some kind of slightly weird times. But they will definitely give us a chance to give some of our returning players, including Luis Diaz, a chance to play. I don't know if Núñez will be involved. Jota will not, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'm gonna watch him. I suspect there's gonna be a few kids playing too. Senior players, obviously the ones at the World Cup are not going to be there. So senior players might play, I don't know, 45 minutes or whatever, but it's mostly going to be, it's mostly going to be the kids. Because I was looking at the list of players that were traveling, and there were a bunch of kids there.
Yeah.
So I suspect that's going to be the case. I would watch them just because, and I'm not sure what the dates are. Are they next week or?
Yeah, I think the Lyon game is 9 a.m. East
Sunday.
Coast on Sunday.
Yes,
and
next Friday.
Milan game is
10 next Friday.
10:30. Okay. On.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch them. I'm tired of watching like old matches on LFC TV. Just looking forward to seeing something new. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be good. I just want to see, the level of some of the players that came back. You mentioned Diaz. Just see where he's going to be at. How that injury has affected him, just from a performance perspective. But yeah, looking forward to watching those matches.
It definitely will be interesting to see them. I don't know how seriously, because usually with preseason games, it depends where Liverpool are in their cycle of training, right? Often they'll do a double session the day before and then go off and play one of these games.
Do you know that if the players got any time off, like a week off or something, the ones that is that what they got, a week?
I'm not a follower of Thiago's Instagram, but my daughter tells me he was in Las Vegas, and somewhere else in Europe.
Is he betting against Spain?
I know this.
Okay.
He was in Las Vegas, and then he went to Los Angeles, and he was at courtside at a Laker game, and then he ended up going to the Maldives. Nice life.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure he's really upset about not being in the Spanish squad now. Right? Okay. So,
speaking of him, sorry, just one point. Speaking of him and the Spanish squad, I wonder how he would have helped them today against Morocco with that sturdy defense of theirs. But yeah, Luis Enrique. Pick Jurassic Barcelona center midfielder and then took it.
Yeah,
as your starting midfield.
Yeah, we had a bit of a chat on WhatsApp group today about this, and there were different opinions. But I guess my perspective is that the Pep's Barcelona of 12 years ago has probably changed the kind of player who's coming through in Spanish academies, so that they only have midfielders. Essentially, it's not quite true, but it's close, right? Because the centre back Laporte is actually French. And they got front. They've got Morata and a couple of other guys who look like midfielders to me. So I think they could have benefited from having Thiago, even though he's another midfielder. So Justin, let's what are you? How invested are you in the Carabao Cup tie away in Manchester City on December 22nd? Because I think we'd easily see that as another friendly or as a game against Manchester City.
I'm of two minds of it. Normally, I don't mind if we go out early in these cup competitions, especially this year, because we won it last year. I don't care about it. I care about the Champions League and I care about our top 4 race. That said, the second we drew City, I decided that I really cared about this competition. I'd like us to win it. I don't like losing to them.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where there is no concept of a draw. So I hope it's us getting through. But if it's not, I'll be pissed for about 24 hours and then remember that it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
What's more, like Leicester on Boxing Day is significantly more important. And then the quick turnaround. Who we play on the 30th again?
Oh, it's Villa
Villa Boxing Day. Villa away on Boxing Day. Leicester at home on the 30th, and then we're in the league on the 2nd.
Yeah,
and then Wolves in the FA Cup at home on the 7th. So
Brentford on the 2nd.
Yeah, so I would like for us to realistically, it's the FA Cup game. Don't necessarily the domestic cups don't register for me this year, but if we get to a semifinal in either one, I'll be invested in us winning them.
Yeah.
But it's really, for me, it's put as many league points on the board as you can and roll into Madrid or have Madrid roll in around mid-February in a manner where we can hopefully be sharp and not thinking about it as revenge, but can just, inflict some damage on them because Lord knows they have it coming.
Yeah. A good old 4-0 Anfield for that one would definitely work. The reason I stopped with the agenda on the 30th, by the way, is because I'm actually going to be at the Leicester game, and my flight back is the same time as our game against Brentford.
No.
So obviously I will not be watching that one live.
See, that's the day before my birthday, so I get a nice, easy day off because it's New Year's Day observed, where I can go to a bar and watch a game the day before my birthday. Start a little bit early celebrating, I hope.
That sounds good. Sounds good. I always feel that birthdays around the holidays should be celebrated more. I think just going back, Daz, and we'll go to you. Villa away on Boxing Day. Unai Emery has had a month to work his magic. Is he going to get them to pretend it's a Europa League final, and we'll have a hard time beating them?
I think that every single manager that plays against us sees it as some form of a cup final. The number of games where teams have gassed themselves out against us and gone on and got tonked in the very next game is astronomical. I think I rated Unai Emery as a coach. I think he was wrong place, wrong time for Arsenal.
Yeah,
but he does know how to organize a team to be kind of automaton-like, and he does seem to be a bit of an anathema to the way that Klopp likes to play. So, it's just to go back to the City game. I'm kind of with Justin, but I think for Klopp, the 3 games in the week that follow are going to be the most important part, because if he can come out of the traps and get 9 points out of those 9, whereas other teams could potentially start stumbling around that time, some of our nearest and dearest, I think that's really what he's going to be going for. He doesn't like to lose to City, but he's going to look at it as another preseason match, a la the Dubai Cup. It'll be the third of 3. And I don't think that there's many Liverpool fans that would rather take a loss or a tie in one of the following games at the expense, and get a league get one in that League Cup as a consolation. So
yeah, the thing I would say is the sequence of those games actually is really nice, apart from the Brentford one, because they play like they have 3 clear days between the City game, the Villa game, the Leicester game, and then there's only 3 days to the Brentford game. So given where they might be on their trajectory of like warm-ups, and given there's not a lot going on afterwards because there's a ton of cup games in January, they might be more committed to that City game than they would otherwise have been.
Well, my concern is with everyone having essentially 6 weeks off and then coming into like a heavy schedule like that is you probably see an uptick in injuries. No, that might not just be for us, because you know how hard Klopp likes to go in preseason, but I think that is a lot of football to be played after 6 weeks off. So my concern is that we're going to be. I honestly think that we will go into the market in January. I don't think it's necessarily because it's out of necessity more than it is out of want. So I'm wondering if there are a couple of injuries that happen over that week period before the new year that it kind of forces our hand. But my sense is that we're probably going to go into it anyway. Yeah.
Well, we mentioned a few people who may fill that bill. Nobody mentioned Amrabat. I saw that rumor about him today. Thought he looked pretty good for Morocco. Did he play for Watford?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah. Same guy.
Yep.
Yeah, he looked good today.
Does he play for Benfica nowadays?
I don't know. But
he plays for Fiorentina.
Yeah.
Beware the spectre of El Hadj Diouf is all I would say. Yeah. Someone mentioned on one of the commentaries about like people that had like moved on to a successful gig after their World Cup experience. Yeah.
We got Paddy Berger, didn't we?
One name, James.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So don't get me wrong. El Hadj Diouf was not his own, but it was just that they talked about him as being on the list of like people who'd gone on to greater and better things after being discovered at the World Cup. Yeah. Okay. El Hadj Diouf is not a good note to end the podcast on, but we will be back at sometime next week. I'm guessing before the real stuff starts. Well, at least in the next 2 weeks before the real stuff starts, and we'll talk more closely about what teams Liverpool will pick, and we'll have some experience of where they are, the Reds who are in the World Cup are still doing, and where the friendlies have gone. So let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Haitham. So good to see you. Thanks, Daz. Always good to see you. And Justin, thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share with a friend. Follow us at First State Kopites on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. Finally, music is courtesy of Hypnotic. They're a Welsh electro-pop band, and you can find them at https://hyperfollow.com/hypnotic. Hypnotic is HYPENOTIC. Thanks so much to them.